All right, unmuted. Finally figure out how to use this thing. Today is Open Source Friday, and we are here with a guest like normal. Nothing's different, just the guest changes every week. I'm here. We had a great evening last night with Hopscotch and chatting about APIs, but today we're talking about documentation with Janice. Hey, Janice.
Hello.
Janice is coming in from, well, you would think that was a virtual background, but it's actually a real background.
It's real.
Excellent. So yeah, do you want to give us an introduction on what you do at GitHub, what you do in regards to documentation as well, and even how you got here?
Yeah, so I recently transitioned into being a product manager at GitHub, and I am working on the Docs open source project. So we just open sourced the Docs a week and a half ago, and it has been a whirlwind experience ever since then. Before that, I was a content writer, so I was a technical writer at GitHub for about a year and a half. So I've been there for a while in tech time. Before that, like long ago, I actually have a degree in theater and worked as a middle school and high school theater teacher, and then got into tech through the Outreachy program, which works with people from marginalized groups to get into transition into tech. It was one of the few places that would help somebody that wasn't a student get into tech, which was what I was really looking for when I was looking to transition. And then I worked on Gulp.js, which is another open source project, and then found my way to GitHub. I applied and never assumed that anyone would like read my resume, let alone hire me, but here I am.
Excellent. Yeah. And yeah, it's fascinating seeing that transition. And we literally just talked with Megan last week from Gatsby about their transition from going from teaching to also doing documentation, which it seems to be a common thread. And I think with documentation, there's a lot of teaching that happens, correct?
Oh, yeah. So when you're writing documentation, you really focus on your user. You focus on who is reading your docs and how they are going to access the information and what the progression is. So there's this concept in education called background knowledge, and like, what does your user know already and what pieces do you need to fill in? And if you don't understand those things as a technical writer, like, you're just not going to write great docs.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, I appreciate good documentation. I enjoyed Gatsby documentation. I use a lot of GitHub's documentation as well.
Gatsby's documentation is beautiful. It
Yeah,
is some of the first great docs that I read that are more accessible to new users than I think anyone else is. That's like a missing piece in this open source
yeah,
world, is like
and
brand new people.
yeah, and I was gonna say too as well. The so I used to work for a company called Netlify as well, and we have a great documentation engineer as well, which you might know, Jessica over there. Well, I think she actually has a team now at this point. I worked when we were much smaller, but I think even when we were creating documentation at that company, we looked around and tried to figure out, yeah, who's doing it well, and like we named a couple of folks, and there's always it's always great to see people doing it well and people actually taking like the education piece of it and like taking people along for the ride, like with great care. And that's what I
Yeah.
appreciate with GitHub's docs. Like I know how to reference things, and I've seen GitHub's docs also evolve as well. Like if anybody's seen the GitHub docs recently, you can see it looks quite different than what it used to. Like even 6 months ago, which I'm
Oh,
super
yeah.
appreciative. Shout out to Zeke, who's in the chat too. Welcome in, who's on the team that does the engineering for the docs.
Yeah, Zeke has done so much work getting us to the point of open source. If you want the nitty gritty details, he wrote a amazing blog post about how we worked all the way through. Like, this has been a multi-year long process to get open sourced, and he explained how we got there in a blog post Wednesday. It shipped Wednesday.
Oh, nice. Um, yeah, I thought that was gonna happen. Let me repaste that link. What happens is we actually have to block links for folks. I tried making Zeke a VIP before he posted that, and then we had to raise the condition. But yeah, we'll get you in there, in Zeke. But yeah, what I'm getting at is yeah, there's a lot happening in the GitHub documentation. So
Mhm.
since you've been working on it for quite some time. Like, what's some sort of highlights in the change that we've seen, not just open source, but just seen it within the documentation? Like any sort of things that you want to point out?
Yeah, so I think about 6 months ago, we went through the process of, we had two separate documentation sites. We had a developer.github.docs. I don't even remember what the website was anymore. We had a developer site and that had like API content and more of that and integration stuff. And then we had the regular site. And there was this disconnect that users didn't even necessarily know that both of these things existed. A lot of people used one or the other. And so now they're all combined into this docs.github.com site. So you can find everything you need to use GitHub as well as you can in one place. And so that was a huge effort figuring out how to make all of those things work together. We've also done a lot of work localizing content. So at the very top, there's a language picker. And so we have, there's English and simplified Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, and Brazilian Portuguese. And so you can see these docs all in different languages. Some of them, so we work with an integration called Crowdin. And so when we update content, the writers update content and then it goes to Crowdin and then our translators translate those things and then they come back. So sometimes there's some lag depending on what we're working on.
Okay, yeah. So like when I'm looking at this, I see the simplified Chinese here, and then this is being in English. Oh, looks like it is 503. All right, not sure what happened there, but here we go. Open an issue.
There we go. Zeke, fix it. Yeah, so sometimes it'll be in English, and that's the reason. Unfortunately, we're not taking localization updates in the open source repo yet. We're working to get there, but with our Crowdin integration, that just doesn't quite work yet. We're not there.
I was about to say, I don't know if I could switch back to English. I can't read the...
You can do it.
Yes, I just had to put my mind to it. So yeah, if anybody has questions about the documentation and specifically, feel free to drop them in the chat. Zeke's here for a bit to answer questions. If you have a support question, which I think Bradley, Bree4 Adley, feel free to drop it in support. I can't really answer GitHub Linux in the GUI. Honestly, can say no idea. But semantic pull request I use actually is made. Grab the man's a fork. Okay, cool. Yeah, actually, yeah, Dota is actually, he has a PRO in one of my projects using semantic pull request, the semantic pull request stuff. So yeah, good to see you, Dota. And but yeah, in regards to the documentation, that's huge, and that's pretty cool to see the different languages. I wanted to talk about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Nope, I wasn't saying anything. What were you saying?
Well, it seems like I'm saying everything right now, but I was just going to talk about the fact that we just open sourced the documentation last week.
Yeah, last week. It was only last week, even though it feels like it's been 3 years. It was last Wednesday. So this was a really cool project, right? So we actually, excuse me, we're working in two separate repos. We have a docs internal repo where we're still writing documentation that isn't ready to be public yet. And then we have this public docs repo, and we've got this great application called Repo Sync, which is also open sourced, and it takes the two and syncs everything together. So the Git commit history and everything in the file structure all syncs between both repos automatically using actions. So we can work in both places, and we can get all of these great open source contributions, and we can still do some of our work behind the scenes that needs to be done.
Excellent. Repo Sync. You know, it's funny you bring this up because I was actually writing something for this, and hold on, let me fix Zeke again because I feel like you're gonna have a lot of knowledge bombs to share with us.
Do it, Zeke.
All right, sorry, we'll figure this out. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I think in the future we need to. Oh, you keep beating me to trying to get you one of the valuable players within. Wise by. Okay, yeah. So Zeke, we won't be able to do any more link sharing, but perhaps you can Slack Janice, and Janice can can help us out there. But yeah, for now we'll move on to the Repo Sync, and the Repo Sync being also, I think I could probably just copy and paste that link again. Poor Zeke, he's taking time out of his busy engineering schedule to get banned by a bot.
Yeah, we've been having our own bot issues. Bots are always so good until they stop working.
Yeah.
And ruin everything.
And speaking of bots too as well, so it's funny that I see this, and like we literally work for the same company. I was writing something it's very similar to this Repo Sync thing, which
okay.
I don't think my project really it works that well. It's pretty inconsistent. But I've had to do the same thing where I need to sync the repos across different organizations because don't have to go into details, but yeah, I am going to save this one for later.
Yeah. So Zeke found a similar open source project. I think it was called Pull by a user named Way. And we worked with him and he created Repo Sync to do all this cool stuff for us. So it's open source and anybody can go snag it and do, I think it's at docs/repo-sync. And so anyone can,
Are you talking about the repo itself?
The Repo Sync is there. So we have another org called Docs, which is all open sourced, and Repo Sync lives in there.
Actually, I'm going to grab the GitHub. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so this is where our liquid markdown, which is how we version things, and I believe Repo Sync is in here somewhere. Oh man, or I'm going to be wrong. I'm wrong. All right.
GitHub.com/reposync. Oh, so so Zeke's in here and he's spelling out. He's learned his lesson, and he's now spelling out the link for us.
Okay.
Which is appreciated.
Thanks, Zeke. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. There it is. Yeah. It's Repo Sync.
Yeah. In the future, we'll have to get a list of folks that we need to actually get into mod level, so that way we don't get stuck in bot jail.
Yeah, so this is the project. Anybody can borrow it and use it. It's got some great docs, I believe, written by Zeke and Way, explaining how to use it to sync your repos.
Yeah, and real quick, I'm going to answer that one question, which do we have a calendar for future streams? And that's a great question. I think that was a Small Brute. These Twitch handles always get me. I actually pronounced one earlier today was kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, and I regret saying it out loud, so I need to slow down a bit.
Whoops.
Yeah, so going back to our share and talking about Repo Sync, I just dropped a link to our Meetup page, which we do plan ahead all these streams and the events that we do, specifically the virtual events. So it encompasses not just what we do on Twitch, it does what we also do on YouTube as well. So check it out, join that group, and pretty good pronounced. Smaller brute. All right, excellent. Yeah, so Repo Sync is now its own organization and its own repo. Keep a pair of GitHub repos synced, which is genius. And Zeke, being the prolific open source contributor and maintainer himself, has graciously put this in a place that we can all share and delight alongside of it. So since we spent so much time just trying to get to this page, I'll drop that in the chat too as well. Yes, and welcome in Chalaz Zordak 17. Good morning. Yeah, I just lead into these names. I say them out loud because it's your name. I honor your choice, and I will welcome you into our community here on the GitHub Twitch channel.
We need a pronunciation button so that everyone can explain how to pronounce their handles.
So there's currently right now Clarkio is actually live streaming over on Twitch, and he's been doing a lot of he works at the Microsoft team and does a lot of live coding on Fridays around this time, and he's been doing voice to code.
Nice.
So I think you could use the the Azure cognitive voice thing and be able to do that way. But if you do the inverse, text to speech, I think I could actually write a command to make that happen. I spent some time making some Twitch integrations in the last couple weeks.
They're always wrong though. Somebody always says their handle in their head differently than I assume it is.
But
I'm always wrong.
I think that's the fun of it though, like leading into it.
Fair.
We took a bit of a detour talking about repo sync. This is literally a lot of actions. So, folks, if you wanted to see a project that is using actions, triage issue comments.
Yeah. So the goal is to set everything up. So, we want to be really responsive and be available for all of these awesome contributions that we're getting. And so right now I am the person triaging, and the goal is that I don't always have to be the only person triaging, the primary person triaging, and that people can dip in and out and participate in that. So this action takes everything. I think this one's new issues, reopened issues, and issues with new comments by contributors.
Yeah.
And it throws them onto a project board, which is also public, and adds a triage label. So then I see those in the project board, and I can take a glance at them and figure out what team from the docs, like what sub team on the docs team should look at the issue.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I'm a big fan of leveraging actions to do some of the automation. Actually, yeah, I've been doing a lot of talk about actions recently, and always looking for examples. So I might be stalking this project pretty heavily in the future.
Yeah. There's a bunch of all the triage ones are together, and then we also use a lot of actions to test and make sure that PRs aren't going to break anything. We've got a lot of actions going on.
Yeah. Talk about actions. I see the AL11Y action as well, which I assume is testing just interaction. Thinking the search too as well. That's a nice one that I guess a lot of people don't think about, like caching, searching. And it looks like Algolia is what powers the search. Shout out to them.
Algolia does. They are great.
Cool.
So one of the big things is that when we have a staging, so if you open a PR, you can actually see your changes on a staging server, which also pops up automatically. And we kept forgetting that you have to actually push your changes. Let's see, about pull requests. Yeah, that's an article. And if you scroll down, keep going, that view deployments on the right side. Yeah, welcome bot is great right there. Oh, where'd you go? Right there. That view deployments on the right side. And that'll take you to a staged version of the changes. And so you can see all of your changes for real, what they really, really look like. And you can click through any article. And the only thing that's not going to work is search, because you need that action to run Algolia before you can see those changes.
Yeah, it's kind of pretty janky there.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
And just real quick, if people did not really realize what just happened here, this view to deployment, I know this because I actually gave a whole GitHub Universe talk about the deployments API. And it's a way for you to actually see the environments that are literally on for your environment. So for free, you get this for GitHub Pages, but it looks like we're using Heroku in this instance. It looks like someone turned off the environment side, which is fine. But normally, if the environment side list was actually enabled, you could see all the deployments that are active. But yeah, you can see also down here, you can see the latest environment, which is going to link from here as well. Excellent. I love that Heroku has integrated that in their bot.
Yeah, it's been, it was really important for us. So as writers on the writing team, this is something that we use a lot. You make a change, and especially because we're writing in Markdown, if you're doing something like a table, which can get so complicated and silly, if you have a space in the wrong place or you forget a pipe, your table is just completely busted. So being able to go in and actually see that on the staging environment and really understand what your changes are and compare them to the existing article is really valuable. And we wanted to make sure that our contributors could have that experience as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. I mean, it's always good to know, like, and I love that you have the welcome bot. You've got other things to help people. Zeke just turned on the environments in the sidebar as well. Wow. Ask and you shall receive 371 environments. So this is an active project right here. And this is what I was looking for. Zeke being the one of the admins on the repo can do this for us. No need to actually go and check this, but more of for the listeners who were not aware that you can actually set with the deployments API your different environments. Definitely take advantage of that. I know this because I also built one for Netlify, which is called Loglify, which you can get your Netlify logs directly in the environments. It's homework for the listener to go Google that. I won't continue to flex my own stuff, but small brute. You ask about the neural search stream coming. Uh, if you know somebody, feel free to intro us. This is our GitHub Meetup invite. This is my Twitter as well. So you can reach out to me directly if you know of a project. I'm happy to reach out to them and talk about it. So far, I've asked all my friends to come on and talk about their projects, and so I'm happy to make new friends and talk about their projects as well. uh, Dota 2 is saying the more environments, the better, right? It's like Pokemon. Yes, indeed. Yeah, and I love this, like being able to contribute to the documentation in positive ways. What are sort of like low-hanging fruit for people to contribute to? Like, what are like the biggest needs for the documentation today?
So we've got a couple of areas of focus. So if you look at the issues, we've got content issues, which are things that change the words on the docs page. And then we've got engineering issues, which are focused on the site or maybe actions or workflows or something like that. So those are all available depending on what you feel confident about. Our site is mostly, you probably need to know some JavaScript, some YAML. It's a Node app. And then our content is all Markdown with some liquid versioning. So the goal was for that to be really accessible and available to people who are maybe trying out pull requests and issues and all of these things for the very first time. I know that it can be really overwhelming to try to start figuring out how to get involved in open source and get involved in GitHub. So any content issues that we've put out, we've tried to give sort of an understanding of this is what the change is, and this is sort of what we're looking for in that change. And then you're welcome to open a pull request. And if you have any questions, you can open a discussion, ask in your pull request. I am there. People have been confused, and I understand it is a lot to try to figure out all at one time.
Yeah, and like I feel like the best way to get involved in open source, for me personally, I know past performance is not guaranteed for future growth, which I have a finance degree. I don't know if you can tell, but what I'm getting at is that I like using the things, and by using the projects, I'm able to. Sorry, I'm now seeing Dota's comment about friends in 2020. What a serious brag. Which we're all going through different walks of life right now. It's challenging. And I'm just lucky I work at a company like GitHub where I get to the Zoom call people all day, every day. Which doesn't sound like a brag. It sounds like anyway, I'll move on. But what I'm getting on is like using the documentation and finding like places like if I spent a lot of time in the actions documentation, to be quite honest, and I also realized this is this is the stage version. Look at the
there we go.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time here just looking for specific stuff. Honestly, I haven't even seen this quick start.
Oh, we just redid the whole actions landing page. So everything should be maybe a little bit easier to find exactly what you're looking for. So that has been a new thing.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. What I was getting at too as well, I always know kind of what I'm looking for. And the one thing I look for pretty quickly is usually not managing. Oh, this one, which I'm glad it's linked. I used to just Google from google.com events that trigger workflows because I knew I could get to it eventually. But
and here it is.
It would just show up in the search results. But yeah, now I know I can just click 2 clicks and I'm in. But I look at this all the time. So when I'm building new actions, I just want to see what's available to me. Shout out to Workflow Run. I just learned about this one recently, which you can actually trigger workflows from different files directly in the repo. But yeah, I just kind of blown away on how easy it is to learn things like actions, how easy to find all the information I need co-located in the right place. So yeah, shout out to the Docs team for making this happen.
We are humans, so sometimes there are typos or there are problems. And if you're on a page and you see a problem like that, if you scroll down to the bottom, we've got a button there for you to make a contribution. There's actually 2 buttons. This is a massive article. So there's a make a contribution button. There it is. And if you click that, you'll get into the edited version of this page on our doc site. So you can actually go into the repo and you can make a change and open a pull request. And then I probably will be the person who sees that ping and comes in and says, oh, this is so great. Thank you so much. Let me triage this for the right team. And then the folks working on actions who know way more about actions than I do will look at it and get it merged for you. Are you going to do it? Oh, no, you're one of those people making random emoji. Nobody needs pizzas and action docs.
We'll see if this gets pushed through. It looks like I can't commit the main. We'll need to get that changed.
No, please don't commit to me.
On a Friday. This is a very important change. I'll back out of this change. We don't actually need this change.
That's okay, but there you go. You open your change and open a pull request, and then we have a conversation, and you can check it all out. Please use the pull request template. We have a template. We have templates. Please use them. They're there to make my life easier. So then I know what you intended with your change and where to send your change to people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and if folks didn't know that, you could actually set up a pull request template by creating a pull request template file, and then it looks like this. So this would be the context that you have to fill out.
If you click raw, there's actually a lot of details in there explaining all the pieces. So this is the secret. So I've got a bunch of HTML commenting. So it explains what you need to do, but then the only thing that you'll see is those other pieces.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. The Markdown comments is something I've taken a lot of advantage of. I'm trying to, in my project that I am taking contributions on for Hacktoberfest, I've been trying to push people, or not push them, just sort of like guide them into some new features in GitHub that they might not be aware of, like linking issues to the PRs by using those tags. So I've finally figured out how to word my comments in a way that this is something to pay attention to. And actually, please fill in this part as opposed to read over it. I've been touring. I know there's a couple actions and a couple bots that actually validate the copy of your template, and then we'll leave a comment if it's invalidated. Maybe someone deleted something. I feel it actually. So Dota 2, who's actually in the chat, I still have a PR open for you. No, I have a PR that you opened for me. That I looked at this morning, but I got distracted. But I'll give you some comments this afternoon for sure. Excellent.
Yes. Trying to think of what other. So we spent a lot of time really focusing on how to make sure that anybody could drop in and hopefully feel like they could contribute. I know that it can be I personally felt really intimidated the first couple times I tried to contribute to open source. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I do everything wrong? And then they hate me and they don't want to accept anything. They don't even read my pull request. So I just didn't a lot. And so please don't feel that way here. Someone even opened a pull request that said, I'm practicing. It's okay if you don't want this. Cool. Great practice here. It's okay. Please let me know that you're doing that and not just a spammer, because we get those right now too.
Yeah, no, it's I don't mind people testing out the tires, and sometimes people test out, opening up issues and leaving one-line changes or one-line request, which is fine. It's a great way to say hello. I will go ahead and close that and point you to the Discord. I have a Discord to chat with people to keep them connected and updated with what the plan is for the project. But speaking of Discord, I see this discussion, which is GitHub Discussion. So I'm curious, what do I expect for this area, and what sort of content is here?
Yeah, so the idea with discussions for us, everyone uses discussions differently. So we've got a hello, welcome here, and then everything else, if you have an idea for how you think things should be changed, if you have a feature request, if you have a question, then feel free to open up a discussion where both the docs team and the community can participate in the answer and figuring it out and hashing things through. We had somebody open up what does this notifications mean here? So somebody went in, they had a conversation about it, and then the end result was, oh, you know what? Yeah, why don't you open an issue about that? And so then the person opened an issue, and then we can get that fixed.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, discussions are a really good place to have that conversation when you're not sure whether or not something is an issue. We've been sort of thinking of issues as sort of a task list of the things that should be done or could be done.
So what's the, what would the boundary, and I guess since you're helping product manage this as well, what's the boundary from maybe there's something not clear in the docs. Like, should I go to support first to ask the question? So like actually github.com/support and say like, I don't know if this works, or should I go directly to docs and say this is not documented? Or yeah.
So if it's something about your account personally, definitely go to support because
Yeah.
we have no access to anything of yours. But if it's like, I don't understand what this line is supposed to mean, or am I interpreting this correctly, or I think this might not quite be right, then feel free to come open an issue. The answer might be, yeah, it is documented right, and here's some more explanation about it. Do you have a question? Like, we can chat about it. But yeah, probably an issue.
Okay.
Or a discussion. Feel free to do a discussion.
Excellent. Yeah, and I just wanted to point out with discussions, you can get your questions answered. So if you do have a question, you could see Abjeet. He asked a question. We have an answer. So it looks like Felicity. I'm not sure. Content writer at GitHub. I've actually not met Felicity before. Actually, I think I know who this
She's
is.
great.
Yes, I've definitely seen them around, but I've never actually had interactions with them.
Yeah. The best, like my favorite thing about discussions as a medium for questions is that those questions still exist. So if you have a question, I almost guarantee that someone else has the same one. So if you put it in a discussion and we find an answer, we can mark it as an answer. And then if someone else comes in looking for the same information, there's a spot to go.
So I do have a question, and it's something I've wanted to ask the actions team / the docs team, and it's something I've always wanted. So maybe this will turn into a discussion eventually. But my question, just being a heavy actions user, is the GitHub token that you get provided. I just want to know what the ceiling is for that GitHub token. I'm not sure if that's actually documented anywhere within the actions. And
I have literally no idea. Let's find out.
Here we go. Permissions for, okay, I think this is exactly what I wanted. So this did not exist back like probably 6 months ago when I really started turning up the heat for actions. But just simply knowing what can I do with the token is actually what I wanted. So hats off to me for never searching this and then finally seeing what I wanted.
So, I mean, people think of docs as being sort of a static thing for the most part, and they're not. We've got, I think, 15 writers going at it all the time. They are constantly writing, updating, changing the docs. And that's something that's not necessarily visible to everyone with how big our documentation library is. Like, you can't tell that this one article was updated unless you happen to go back to it. So having the repo open source like gives you a little bit more insight into that. And then there will be we're looking to make some changes so that everything is a little bit more interactive, and maybe there's some wiggle room there in figuring out how that all looks.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I'll be. So I bring this up because I've been doing some training. Actually, I have a training next week for actions, and I've been wanting this, but I didn't want to go through and try to. Well, I do have access to look at the code, but like it's going to take me way more time than just asking. But like having a chart like this is exactly what I needed to be able to say this is the limitation or the extent of what you can do, which is all I needed. Which I'm happy this is so serendipitous. And I had you on the rubber duck desk with me.
Yeah, because I don't know what that is at all.
Excellent. Well, we'll have to get you some GitHub Actions training. We'll get you writing actions in the repo pretty soon. I wanted to transition real quick because you had mentioned this in your intro, and I wanted to give some space for outreachy.
Yes.
So do you want to explain what outreachy is and how you were involved?
Yeah, so there are a lot of programs that are really big, like Google Summer of Code and some other things where folks can come in and spend like 3 months working with an open source project and get paid for it. But outreachy is different because they work with folks who are not students. And that's not really a common thing. There are lots of folks who are looking to transition into tech, and there aren't as many opportunities. And Outreachy creates that opportunity for people from marginalized groups. They're global. They take global. They accept applications globally. Words are hard. And so I worked with an organization called Sisters, which is the community portion of the Anita B. Org Foundation that puts on Grace Hopper every year.
Okay.
And so they put up a bunch of projects. I think they might have changed it a little bit, but basically you put in open source contributions and you end up working for an organization that has applied and been accepted to participate in Outreachy. And you get paid actual money so that you can afford to do this internship, which was a big thing for me. And it was a really cool experience. It got me a lot more comfortable with GitHub. It got me a lot more comfortable with asking questions publicly, which is a big part of open source, but can be really intimidating at the beginning. And it really sort of led the way into working with Gulp and then working at GitHub.
Cool. And you mentioned that in transition too as well. So you worked with Gulp specifically in documentation?
I did. So if you click that Get Started at the top, we rewrote all of the documentation, put it on the site for version 4 of Gulp. And so the lead maintainer and I wrote all these docs to get everybody started working on Gulp.
That is awesome. What a nice introduction to GitHub, but also to even open source too as well. And like kind of full circle for you, because now you're doing open source at GitHub, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's been quite the long and twisted journey, and took multiple years of sort of flitting in and out of tech and not being sure that it was really the right place for me. I started learning how to code and realized I don't like it and didn't want to do it. It's just not my thing. And I didn't actually know that technical writing was a job. I would not call myself a writer. I don't like write stories or anything like that. And so the idea that someone was going to pay me money to explain how to do something was right up my alley. And sort of trying to learn to program helped me understand enough background knowledge and base level understanding of programming that I can sort of read into what things are and understand how to even start researching something to document it.
Yeah, so I spent the last couple of days actually chatting with a lot of new open source contributors, as well as people who broke into open source. And like just in the context of like Hacktoberfest, I've been a part of a bunch of different events, and just encouraging folks to get involved. And like hearing that you found your way, even like after I guess attempting, or maybe you did learn how to code. Yeah, I don't know okay, so a little bit, un poquito. Learning a little bit of how to write code, finding out that it wasn't for you, and that you wanted to do something else in tech, and like being able to use your skill set in different ways. And I think that's something that a lot of folks don't realize, that there's a lot of opportunity to bring your skill set that's outside of programming. Like you happen to be a teacher prior, which has helped you in being empathetic. Pathetic sounds like the wrong word. But yeah, to have the empathy to understand the onboarding experience. And how did you get connected with Gulp.js? Was that through Outreachy specifically directly?
No, it wasn't. So my husband is a JavaScript developer. And so what happened was that I suddenly realized that he was getting paid to do way cooler stuff than I was, and getting more money than I was as a teacher. And I was like, I'm going to totally learn how to do this. So I started using all of these free resources, free Code Camp, and I was doing some Code Academy stuff and some of the Harvard MIT classes, and just sort of grabbing onto anything that I could to figure out what was interesting and what I might like to do. And he is friends with one of the maintainers of Gulp. So I ended up starting just helping write blog posts. I didn't understand what I was reading at all. He would write this blog post about very technical things. I didn't know what it was, but I had just enough knowledge that I could sort of edit it over and say like, well, what are you trying to say here? What's your purpose? Who's your audience? What's the goal? And we could work together to create a blog post that was accessible and usable and focused on who needed it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, again, so much serendipity in your story and how you sort of found yourself into doing that. And then I'm curious, since we're on this path, like specifically, how did you get into GitHub?
So I actually took the years that I was doing Outreachy and working with Gulp. I had very small children. So I have a 4 and 7-year-old. Their birthdays are almost and just happened. So I kind of forget how old they are right now. And so I took some time off to be at home with kids, and I was doing a lot of part-time stuff. And then I decided that I was ready to get back to having some sort of full-time conversation with adults and not small children. So I started applying at random places. I loved, I knew GitHub. I'd met people at conferences from GitHub. I really, really loved all the people that I'd met. And so I started just kind of creeping and keeping an eye. And then a position happened to open up on the core content team, writing just all of the things. The core content team writes anything that shows up and isn't APIs, packages, actions, or advanced security. And so every day I would sit down and write something different, and I never knew what I was going to be writing about. And I probably didn't understand it before I pulled an issue that I had to write some documentation and had to learn about it and figure it out and go from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess my next question is, like, have you rediscovered your love for coding after you've wrote about coding for so long?
No. I was really into, I really enjoyed doing some like front end work. That's the small amount of work that I was really doing. I made a really, really ugly website for sisters, which hopefully no one ever finds. It's hideous. So I enjoy writing like CSS and HTML, and that's about as far as I got. And then I bounced and started writing words instead. But I really like collaborating with people, and technical writing lets you work with all these people who have expertise but don't necessarily know how to transfer that into documentation. Just like in education, you can have these brilliant teachers who are so smart and so understand what they're talking about, but they don't necessarily know how to take 17 steps back from their advanced knowledge and write beginner documentation.
Yeah, no, that is true. And like your interactions with the Gulp maintainer too as well is a lot of what I like about the content writers, even the copy editors too at GitHub, is that sometimes I think I know what I'm doing, but sometimes the structure or just to have the call to action that's very clear. Yeah, I'm a big fan of like people teaching me on how to do this better. And a hero too late said that the quote, "The documentation is the love letter that you write to your future self," which is like, yeah, like my readmes, like my contributing guides. It's stuff like where I'm just like, I haven't done this a while. Actually, I was just contributing to Node.js actually, and I was finding that there was something different. Like to go in the really in the weeds, like there's a runtime called V8, and we had to backport it, which is like not important details, but the fact that the backporting and getting the Git history to match with like what was up on github.com/node, it wasn't documented. It was kind of like a weird edge case that no one really like. Only a handful of people even do this, and I happen to, not that I do it all the time. It just happened to be the problem I was trying to solve required me to do this. So I kind of just hit an edge case where it's like no one's gonna ever run into this, but then when someone runs into it and they figure it out, or they don't figure it out, then there's like, I don't know what's going on, so maybe I'll just walk away from this forever. And it would have been a shame if I did, because it was actually pretty trivial to fix. It just happened to be like one of those it works on my machine problems, and yeah, it just needed a helpful extra pair of eyes to help fix that.
Yeah, that collaboration piece is definitely my favorite. That's what made the idea of transitioning into product management appealing to me. Like the more people I can talk to about all the things that they're good at and figure out how to make them all fit together, like the happier I am. So it was a logical transition.
Yeah, so speaking of transitioning, moving back, and O1 Pollux, welcome in. Thanks for the love and the hearts as well. Talking about the GitHub documentation and it being open sourced last week and ways people can contribute. We finished talking about this GitHub Discussions being a place that we can actually ask questions, things that may be missing within the documentation. It's a good place to start. GitHub Discussions it's a newer feature that was shipped earlier this year that focused on, well, literally discussing the project. So leverage that. Also, the fact that we have this now new make a contribution button at the bottom of all the articles. It actually opens up similar to like what we see. Like we see this in a lot of different documentation platforms and tools and guides. You can actually make the edit. I love that it's actually a legit button too as well. Can't miss that. Well,
It is a
you have to
button.
scroll down to find it, but yeah.
You do. Sure.
And not only we didn't actually even jump into the contributing guide either.
Yeah. So we are excited about whatever kind of contribution you're ready to make. So if it's opening an issue, awesome. Thank you so much. And if it's opening a pull request, then that's great. And if it's asking a question, then that's a great way to contribute to. Contributions are not just pull requests, though we appreciate those as well. Our contributing guide also explains a couple things that we're not accepting contributions on right now, like localization and translated content. And then we are struggling to take images. So if you have a screenshot that you see that is outdated, please open an issue. But it can get really complex with our versioning. So our doc site is versioned for GitHub Server and all the different versions of GitHub Server that we currently support, as well as all of the rest of the end users. So those images can get wonky.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Best to leave it to the folks who can figure that out on their end.
Yeah, but that issue is appreciated because we may not notice that it's outdated. Sometimes we miss those.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm curious. So I did see the call out to GitHub Desktop. I think so over here. Yeah, you can actually fork using GitHub Desktop.
I love desktop.
Oh,
Desktop is my best friend.
Yeah, I use it for one-offs. So for the longest time, I always used Desktop for my second account. I keep a separate account for testing purposes. And in order to contribute, I don't want to use like in Git, you can do profiles, but it just becomes, actually, I probably set up pretty easily if I just took the time. But what I'm getting at is like, it's easier to download desktop. Also, I like using a lot of different things. So desktop, having an excuse to use it because I spent a lot of time on the command line. That's what I use the case for.
Yeah, we had a really great intern in the summer. We had our first ever documentation intern.
Oh, wow.
And he got to redo a bunch of the desktop documentation, which he restructured and worked through it, updated some screenshots, and just like made it all beautiful. When I first started at GitHub, Git was really scary for me. I'm not gonna lie, Zeke would back me up here. I'm still afraid of Git. It terrifies me. I feel like it's very opaque. And so I'm always afraid that I did something that I'm not going to understand how to get myself out of. And desktop is really helpful in that area because you can see what you're doing and it can help. I don't know. It's really helpful. There's also one thing I've heard a lot of people really enjoy is that you can easily add co-committers. So if you work with somebody else, there's a little spot in desktop where you just throw their handle in and it'll populate it for you and they'll be added to your commit instead of having to try to remember the syntax.
Nice. Do people call you Jan Ice?
In elementary school, of course they did. Come on.
Doda, he misread the name and thought it was Jan Ice the whole time. You never know what the handle is.
Well, and the middle name spelling is just, everyone's like, are you sure you spelled that right?
Excellent.
I did spell my name correctly. Thank you.
The also shout out to your background too as well. Just reminder, folks, that is a real background.
It is. It's real.
Yeah, you'll have at the end of the call, you have to go walk back and throw a rock over the ledge or something.
I don't think they'd appreciate that down in the driveway.
No, yeah, probably not. Maybe let's keep everybody safe for now. We'll imagine it. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, any other things you want to share about contributing to documentation, the fact that it's open source, some cool Easter eggs?
Come contribute, come join us, come talk to us. We love documentation and we're really excited to chat about it. So even if you're not sure where your contribution should go, pick something, try it out. It's okay. Just tell me you're testing things if you're testing things.
Excellent. Yeah. Now there's like lots of jokes about your neighbors and throwing rocks. So we do have a little bit of time. I actually wanted to ask you a question of what, like you've been around, like seeing a lot of different projects. Like what are some real birds jealous? What are some of the projects that you're impressed with that are hosted on GitHub and open sourced?
So Gatsby is one of my absolute favorite open source projects to look at and see how well they're caring for brand new contributors. Netlify, I creeped on Netlify a lot too. Like any documentation, so I write docs, any documentation that focuses on brand new users that don't necessarily understand all of the background information is my jam. It's just that it's that missing piece. Like when I very first started, I don't know what I was reading, but I was reading some sort of guide and it was like, open the terminal. And I was like, I don't know what that means. You can't Google how to open the terminal. All sorts of random stuff pops up. It doesn't actually work. I didn't understand what was happening. And like nobody would just explain that piece to me. So anyone that takes the time and the care to really, really get down and dirty explaining the basics is my friend. It's my favorite.
Excellent. I just dropped in the chat. So last week we had a chat with Gatsby talking about their documentation as well. So if you want to learn about how they do documentation and how they structure their contributions as well, definitely check that out. Looks like there you go. Here's a better screenshot. How to reproduce errors. Exactly. Excellent. And then shout out to real quick, Brandon's in the chat, and Brandon was actually one of our earliest pilot episodes too as well. So since I literally just I just uploaded it last night, I'm gonna share it too as well, so everybody can watch and share and enjoy. Oh, looks like I got my there we go. But yeah, Brandon, thanks for being one of our earliest pilots with NGRX. That was like back in the day when I didn't even know what I was doing with the layouts and figuring out the whole streaming thing. Still have the same background though. It's exactly the same. It's weird. It's like it's almost like it's fake.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Janice, thanks so much for chatting documentation with us, talking about open source documentation on GitHub. Folks, if you have questions, you can find Janice in the discussions and the issues. Find Janice on GitHub as well. You know, that's
true.
The place where you can hang out. And I just want to give another shout out to our future guest. So in 2 weeks, we'll have Tanner Lindsley talking about React Query. I sort of skipped over our next guest, which is, oh no, it's actually our next guest after that would be next Friday. Yeah, so we do have an APAC version. So Michelle, who hosts the stream in Australia time, because she's in Australia, she'll be handling the chat with Tanner. And then next week will be Create React App with me. So if you want to get in on the action and get notifications, feel free to just sign up for the group, and we're just sort of funneling all messaging and notifications there. So check it out. I'll drop a link in the chat too as well if you came later and you missed my earlier link dump. So cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was super fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's always nice to share the experience of how open source works. I know this is an open source project that's built on GitHub, but like we are using the same patterns with the contributing MD and the guides and issue templates. So I think if you were looking for a model for how to structure your open source project or gain contributors, there it is. And everybody else, hit the follow button too as well. I should say that. You hit the follow button on this Twitch right now, so that way you get notifications and you can just forget about the meetup page. You just be surprised whenever we go live. Like Christmas morning every Friday. All right, with that being said, I'm going to move on. And yeah, thanks again, Janice.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.